All right, welcome back to another episode of the Carbon Cardboard Podcast covering Formula One and the Formula One card hobby. I'm your host, Bryan, Q3 Cards, joined as always with my good friend Scott from the F1 Castle.
What's going on, everybody?
What a weekend.
That's right, man. Good racing in Barcelona. Don't see it often, but we definitely saw it this last weekend.
So we missed maybe a little bit over a week. We give it our best effort to try to do this as frequently as possible. You were feeling a little under the weather, and then I had some scheduling issues. I had far too many cards to prep the other night, so we just didn't make it work. But we're here to talk. It is a good problem to have. I love. Oh man, it's great. I love it, especially seeing firsthand a lot of these hits that we'll talk about later on from the F1 Castle. And it's an honor and it's a privilege. I don't talk too much about the prep work that I do, just because I like to make sure that everybody can keep their collections private if possible. I'm not here to brag about who I work with or anything like that. It's more for me, and I tell these people individually, it's an honor that they continue to trust me with their very precious and valuable cards. So, but
humble Bryan,
try to be for sure. So, gosh, so we're gonna talk Barcelona. What a race, like you said. Some very interesting results. We'll talk about that, and then we're going to talk a little bit about those aforementioned polls that you've had recently in the castle and some other kind of exciting stuff that you've got.
Futera break went.
I'm really interested. I don't even think, now that I think about it, I haven't really even picked your brain too much about it. I mean, you did the live, and we'll talk about that later on. But just, I'll ask you those questions. I'll save them for the end of the show here, and we get to that section.
Hard-hitting questions.
Mostly softballs. Trying to make you look as good as possible.
It's tough to do.
No, it is not. All right, so just all-encompassing. We didn't get a chance to do our normal preview of the race, so this is coming afterwards. I will say, and I would have been able to crown you Nostradamus again.
We did it. I think we did it. Didn't we on the last episode? I think we went through my predictions. I think I
don't know if we got to talk about the Barcelona one. No. But anyways, so if you don't follow Scott on Instagram at F1 Castle, nailed it. Your podium prediction was spot on.
Max 1, Lando 2, Hammy 3. I had a feeling. I just had a feeling going to Barcelona. I mean, listen, Mercedes had been on an upswing. Obviously, in Canada, they look pretty good. And if you look over the past, years in this new era, it's been Mercedes and Red Bull, on the podium every single race. So I took a shot. I was like, you know what? Lewis has raced in Barcelona so many times. It has been the track. It was the testing track for forever until they switched over to Bahrain. So I thought Lewis would be strong, and he was. And they had just enough pace to stay ahead of the Ferraris in a charging Piastri. So yeah, it was great to see the prediction come through there. My castle call didn't quite get there because Alonso was down in the dumps, so both Spanish drivers didn't make it in the top 10, and I missed on pole as well. But yeah, getting the podium was nice, and it was good to see Lando. I mean, man, you gotta say the McLaren and Red Bull cars are pretty evenly matched at this point. A far cry from the first two races of this season where we thought it was going to be overwhelming Red Bull dominance again. So I'm here for it. Love to see it.
Yes, and I think both Max and Lando appreciated seeing Lewis on the podium. I think I just saw that it was his first podium since the Mexican Grand Prix last year. and they made sure to douse him with plenty of the champagne there.
It was funny. And then talking in the cool down room, then afterwards, actually, you know what? It's funny. I feel like some of the best clips ever don't get seen because they're from the post-race press conference. And it was hilarious when Lando was talking about how he left Max enough room. Max and Lewis both started just cracking up, like just started laughing like hysterically. And Lando's like, "What?" He's like, "All right, I'm gonna stop talking." And they're like, "Oh, okay." Max is like, "Yeah, I'll buy you some glasses or a mirror or something for your birthday." it was funny. Like they're all just joking about it. Lewis up there, having a good time. Far cry from 2021, where there was tension in the room every time they were near each other. So it's cool.
And old man Lewis taking a nap on the couch waiting for everybody else to show up. And, Max had a couple good one. Max is, I mean, not to use stereotypes, but the Dutch are just very reserved and brutally honest. And I think a lot of fans don't know how to take him. I think Max is actually quite funny. And I think he's coming out of his shell even more than usual as well.
I think he is funny. And I think it's almost like he's gone through his villain era and now he's in like his chill guy era or something. Like he really is just like having jokes, like talking around. It helps that Lando is on the podium because they're such good friends. So it's easy for them to kind of joke around. Like they were joking around, even before that when Lando had gotten pole and Max in second about how Leclerc only got a reprimand for hitting Lando, and they were kind of joking around about that. But yeah, I don't know. It's good to see. It's the fight is on and it seems respectful. Now the one thing I will say, it's not quite a championship battle yet. And that always has the potential to change things and change relationships between people. Right now it's Lando and Max are really close and they're kind of trading wins and blow for blow. But Max is, 60 or so points ahead of Lando in the championship, right? So if he was 5 points ahead, maybe it's a little bit of a different vibe. But I'm loving modern day F1 right now. This is much better than 2023, that's for sure.
Yeah, a couple other things I wanted to ask you about. George Russell with the very cheeky pass on, basically while everybody else was squirming on the right side of the track, he just kind of looped into the left, and he actually had the lead in the race for a lap or two until Max decided that he was going to, take the lead.
Yeah, it's like vintage Fernando Alonso. Same track. Alonso went from fourth to first, doing the same thing, kind of sweep around the outside. So yeah, no, it was a really good move by Russell. He did what Perez tried to do last year in Mexico. It was cool to see. I think it kind of robbed us a little bit of a better race between Max and Lando, just because it really messed Lando's race up a little bit more. But overall, it was really good. And yeah, great move by Russell. Honestly, he had some good racing.
The Ferraris were fighting with each other. Some of the post race comments by both drivers seems to I think on the surface there's some niceties, but as we've covered, and now I think this is like our 19th episode, the fact that Sainz is on the way out, he has less of a reason to listen.
Yep.
But Scott, I would also counterpoint that with, if he doesn't demonstrate that he can be a good teammate to a team that he's leaving, is that going to portray and go to his next team? Does the next team getting him think that he is going to be bullheaded and not be a team player? I mean, Sainz has to be a good citizen, basically. I mean, as much as he wants to kind of give the middle finger to Ferrari, he kind of can't at this point because he's still looking for a seat. And I mean, gosh, every day it's a new team that is looking to sign him at this point. I think he just needs to make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, Sainz, he's got to be safe, right? I feel like every team that has an open seat has probably offered him a contract. Like I think it really is in his court and he's trying to decide, hey man, what the hell do I want to do here? And I think he hasn't quite gone over the line, right? Like there's been nothing between him and Leclerc where it's like, wow, Sainz specifically was way out of line there, right? Like there's some argy-bargy and, they're not necessarily loving each other, but that happens, so until it gets to be something egregious, I think it's fine. So, but it's definitely spicy over there for sure in Maranello.
And the last thing I'll ask you about, Scott, here too, while we've got the top 10 on screen here, if you're watching on YouTube, not necessarily a surprise if you watched FP2 and watched some of the long runs, but Alpine, double point score, they finished, they qualified in Q3. And I think their car has improved. They're not quite the tractor that we joked about at the very beginning of the season. And you mentioned it, where this track was one that was used for testing up until like you said, we moved it to Bahrain, that it offers a little of everything. And it's like the jack of all trades, master of none. I think a car like Alpine was potentially going to do well. And if you looked at the long runs, Gasly was, I think in FP2 had like a top 4, top 5 time. So, yeah, it was good to see.
Yeah. I mean, I think they put some really nice upgrades on that tractor. Right. And so it's, it's becoming a decent car. Alpine, like you said, they looked solid all throughout the weekend. So like by the end of the weekend, it wasn't a surprise, but I think even Alpine would have been surprised if going into the weekend. I don't think Alpine thought that both cars would be in the top 10, right? I think they were pleasantly surprised with their pace there. I don't know if they 100% understand why, but it's also, you got to look at some of the other teams. Cause like if you realize, who's really been occupying 9th, 10th, it's been Aston Martin, it's been RB, VCarb, right? Like it's been those two teams predominantly. Usually Alonso is there, and then it's the other 3 cars are kind of battling for that last spot. And Aston Martin and VCarb were nowhere this weekend, right? So, I mean, I think it's a combination of Alpine had a strong showing, but some of the other teams just really did not. I mean, when we saw, look at Q3. The Q3 times, Alpine's a second away, right? Like it's not like, oh, they've broken in. They are definitely still middle of the pack or bottom, but it's clearly now the top 4 teams, I think, is the biggest thing. Like it is now Red Bull, McLaren, maybe even like Red Bull, McLaren, and then Ferrari, Mercedes. But like it is, those 4 are definitely further ahead from everybody else. So yeah, there's points to play for now.
Final question, because I just thought about this. I meant to ask you about it before. Lando appears to be at the point where now that he's got a taste of the top step, anything less than a win is kind of a disappointment. His celebrations aren't as boisterous as it was before when he was finishing second, with his trademark smash and hopefully not smashing the Max's trophy in the process when he does that. But you mentioned it, where Lando's strategy and race kind of got ruined a little bit by Russell taking the lead, and then Lando was kind of in the wake of Max, and it just didn't work out. Even though Red Bull might not have the fastest car, or maybe potentially the advantage that they've had in the past, I think when you talk about like Max's race engineered GP, and I think the secret weapon that Red Bull has, a lot of teams would die for, is Hannah Schmidt, their strategy person.
Good.
Like I think McLaren would kill to have somebody like her. It just seems like that is like the missing piece, and nothing against any of the McLaren, pit wall or anything there, but it just seems like they've got the car. They've got to now get that part nailed down if they want to be a consistent threat to Max and Red Bull at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with that to a certain degree, right? Like, I think there was a little bit of waffling, right? They're like, "Hey, what do we want to do here? Do we want to cover Russell? Do we want to do this?" And like Norris, like, "No, dude. Like, I want to go for the win. I'm not
Hmm.
here to secure second place. Like, I'm not covering off Lewis. I'm not covering off anybody. I'll pass them." He even said that. He's like, "I'll pass him. I don't care." So like he knows he's got the car, he knows he's got the pace, that he can unlock from that car. I think honestly, more than anything though, like the start crushed him, right? I mean, if he holds first place off the start, it's a completely different race. And then later in the race, I mean, God, for a team that has been so consistently good with pit stops throughout the last 2 years, both Oscar's and Lando's pit stops were not great. And in crunch time on the last pit stop of the race for Lando Norris, where he needs a good pit stop to come out and chase Max, they put in a stake pit stop, a 3.6-second pit stop. Like that is double. Max's was like 1.8, 1.9. That's huge difference. Max won the race by 2.2 seconds. So if you put Lando 1.8 seconds closer, he's got DRS for the last 2 or 3 laps, right? And maybe he does come out with a win. So I mean, I think it's a little bit of strategy as part of it. I think they really need to look at their starts because Lando has not been great on starts, and this is not an isolated incident, right? Like he has not been great on starts, and if Red Bull really had to work at that too. Like that when their car was way better than everybody, their starts still weren't great, and then they fine-tuned that and their starts are really good now. So like McLaren needs to look at their starts, get that fine-tuned, and then just some of it is, hey, you got to get used to being in contention.
Hmm.
Like you get those, it's like, oh my God, I might win, I might win, I might win. And you get nervous and all that kind of stuff and the jitters and stuff. And once you get used to battling, it'll just come second nature. Like right now, Red Bull, like you said, they're a fine-tuned, well-oiled machine, and they've been there, right? So they're not under any extra stress just for competing for the first spot. So I think McLaren will get there. We've got 4 more races and then summer break. I think they'll be competitive at all 4 of these races, and then I think they'll come back. They'll iron everything out over the summer, where they all don't work, and they'll make sure they come back even stronger.
Sorry for the bonus question there. Just on
That's
my
fine.
mind, and if I'm gonna like to seek you're the ones with the information here. I'm just the point guard. So let's get to talking about some of the polls and then some of the cool stuff you've got coming up in the castle. So I'll bring these up on screen and we'll just kind of quickly talk through some of these cards. And yeah, let's start with a recent poll. So walk us through where some of these were from.
Sure. So we did a 4-box. So as I've known, it's been like the treasure trove of like 2020 Chrome, where I've got like a lot of my recent cases and boxes and everything. And the first case I ever opened from this particular source was the Max Verstappen Superfractor 2020 portrait, right? So I I definitely love this source. Now I've got everything they had, and we did a 4-boxer, right? Just a little 4-boxer. Um, and some pretty big cards came out. And then after that, Racing and Chronos, my man Scott, did an entire case. And he crushed it. And this was one of the cards from that case. So Lewis Hamilton Gold Wave Portrait, absolute beauty of a card, came out of that case, that 2020 case. And then after that, we had what we got next here? Oh, Sebastian Vettel orange autograph for Supermax Super MSC. This was out of the 4-boxer. That was right before the case. So that was lovely to see. And then we had, I think the next one is again from the single case. This was actually crazy too, because it was a great case overall, right? We had the Lewis portrait. We had, some like 2 image variations, like solid autographs, like all throughout. I think we had like 2 F1 driver autos, Kimi Räikkönen. But we had a red and an orange like in the same pack at the end, and we're like, okay, we're gonna leave this pack for the last. And the orange ended up being nothing like too crazy, but the red McLaren logo, which is crazy because Scott just hit the Pad Perdaja 1 of 1 Sapphire McLaren logo. So he's got tons of McLaren logos right now. But yeah, true red McLaren logo out of 5 was pretty epic. And then this was out of the 4 boxer that we ran, and we had 2 Superfractors, 2 Superfractor 1 of 1s, not 70s, 2 true Superfractor 1 of 1s in 4 boxes. And this one, Lando Norris Driver of the Day in Belgium for cardboard hitters, my man Julian, with another Superfractor. Man, this is an absolutely beautiful card. We're going to be racing there in about 4 weeks' time. It's actually Win Nationals coming up, so it's a cool one. But yeah, so some pretty insane pulls out of 2020 Chrome lately. It's been a lot of fun to open up 2020 Chrome. Don't get to do it too often, so it's nice to get some big pulls when we do.
It's pretty hard to beat the golden discs when you see it in person. It's the pictures do it no justice whatsoever. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling to just see the edge of it. It's like, oh my gosh.
So that's in the F1 Castle. The F1 Castle went on the road last week, and you and Sports Card Yoda Jordan went to PSA headquarters in New Jersey. And what we talked about the last episode, we did tease it at the point, it hadn't happened, was the big Futera break that you did. And you had 200 plus, I think, in your Instagram live. I think
got up to 300.
Holy cow. I think that's a record.
300. That's definitely a record for me. I'm very small. No one joins my lives, but it was crazy. I think I went live and instantaneously there was over 150 people. I mean, it was so shout out to the F1 community, by the way. Thank you for showing up. It was awesome to see that many people that quickly. And yeah, we capped out at 317 was the most at one time. So insane. Most people I've ever had in my live for sure, outside of when Ian Poulter joined my live, but that doesn't count. So yeah, it was really cool. And again, this was a personal box for Jeff.crypto.cards. So all credit to Jeff. And again, thank you to Jeff for allowing me to open it. But yeah, it was cool. And everyone who, we've talked about this, but everyone who knows the Futera product 2006 knows that you're looking for the Lewis Hamilton. So the way me and Jordan had kind of worked it out was he was like, okay, I'll open 6 packs and then you can open 6 packs. I was like, all right. And I listen, I'm very confident in my just, the karma from the F1 community and everything. I had a bunch of Armory cordials in my pockets, for the cordial karma. But I'm just confident that, you can open 6, pick whichever packs you want, and then I'll open 6. And I just have faith that I'm going to do it. So he goes through his 6. Some good cards, some great cards. Schumacher, Relic, David Coulthard, Relic, Jensen Button, some really cool cards. No Lewis. And then pack 2, for me, there it is, right on top. The Lewis Hamilton Next Grand Prix, considered by most his rookie card. It was crazy. It was really cool. I don't know, to have it just be on top versus not, because it's kind of like you're open, oh my gosh, all of a sudden it's there, right? There's no peaking or any kind of anything. And it was really cool. I mean, it was an awesome experience to open that card. I mean, obviously there's been more opened, a bunch of them have been graded and everything, so people have definitely opened them before, but I don't know if it's ever been recorded. I don't think I've ever seen a recording out there of one of these cards being pulled. So I mean, F1 card community history, and shout out again to everyone that joined in. Super cool. And again, we are giving away 5 cards, and I know obviously we got to wait for grades to come back and everything, and I think, and we'll announce this to everyone. I think for the cards that we're giving away, a lot of the bulk cards outside of the Hamilton and some of the relics and everything, I think ultimately we actually decided to grade some of those with SGC, just because a little bit cheaper, you get them back faster, and vintage, you think vintage baseball is all SGC, and then vintage F1, a lot of it's SGC, right? A lot of these cards are in SGC holders. So we have some of those getting graded. I think we have like an Alonso, a Button, and some other guys that we're going to be giving away. So we've got the full giveaway list, and we'll be giving that away sometime in July. So sit tight, but we will make sure that those who got involved will get their just desserts. But yeah, it was awesome. Really cool experience. In and out for me. I came in the night before, stayed at a hotel where Sail GP was staying. If you ever heard of that, the whole US team was there. And then the next morning I had I think 2-minute drive to PSA. I was at a hotel that was literally right next door. So 2-minute drive. And we got in there, and I think 15 minutes later we were ripping the thing, and then I had to drive back home. So it was in and out for me, but it was a lot of fun and super cool to see the community come out in a big way.
Those packs just look cool. Like as you guys were talking about it, it did seem like almost like a deck of cards.
Yeah.
I will fully admit to you, my friend, when you guys had the box cutter on the top and you were like cutting through the edge, like my heart was in my throat. Like my luck, I would just like whoosh, slip of that and like, slice the top of the cards.
Well, see, when you've had practice using a box cutter a million times over, yeah, I was also being very, very careful.
Oh yeah. You both were for sure. And actually for me too, it was a little bit of a history lesson. There was a lot of names that I didn't even recognize, but I will shout out to the castle. You pretty much knew most everything and had a little story about everything too. So I would have loved to see a retro, multiple box break from this product, because I think you would have had a lot of fun with.
Maybe there's an opportunity to do something like that with 2005, because 2005 Futera, while not cheap, is nowhere near as expensive, right? And it's got a lot of similar drivers. But yeah, it was funny because Jordan was talking to me about it before. He's like, dude, I don't know a lot of the guys. I don't know a lot of drivers. I was like, listen, Jordan, like that's not who you're supposed to be for this. You're a guy prepping and doing all that stuff. I was like, I'm the F1 guy here. like I was like, I know everybody. I was like, there's gonna be some people that aren't in F1. I was like, I don't know 100%. And there's some drivers that are included who literally did one Grand Prix or not even a Grand Prix that were included that I wasn't 100% up to speed on. But pretty much everyone, I knew. I either got to watch them race or, had read about them, in the history of Formula One. So I know pretty much everyone in there. I mean, it's all the legends, right? Like it was a lot of fun. Super fun product to rip. Hope to do it again sometime. You never know when something like that will come up, but makes me want to do a 2005 Futera break for sure.
All right. Well, if you get enough people that reach out to you that want to get interested in it, I'd love to see it and get more of that stuff on camera or on film, as you said there. So, all right, we got about 2 minutes left for about a 30-minute mark. I do want to ask you really quickly about another thing you've got going on here in the castle. I think will be really cool for the community to kind of follow along this summer break.
That's right. So we had the F1 community come out big for the Futera breaks. Now we got to come out big for the road to summer break. F1 Castle, we are doing a bracket. So if you're familiar with NCAA tournament here in America, college basketball, there's a big bracket every year. Everyone fills it out and, tallies up your score to see how many points you get, et cetera. And there's a winner, right? A lot of people do them in office pools, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to do one here. Cost to enter, nothing.
Ooh.
First place is going to take home $125 in break credit, the F1 Castle. Second place gets $50, and third place gets $25 in break credit. So it's free to enter, and we're going to have a link that you can actually click, and you can go in and pick your selections. Like, it's not going to be like you don't have to print anything out, write it out, and all this nonsense. You just go in, make your selections, and then submit it with like your email. It'll come to me, and I'll be able to score everything. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking all of the drivers, the top 16. So that means, unfortunately, Logan Sargent, Joe Guan Yu, Valtteri Bottas, and Kevin Magnussen are not in the tournament, and Oliver Behrman we're not counting. So you see the matchups in here. It's going to be a new matchup every week, right? And we've got Verstappen going against Albon, right? It's the 1 against the 16. And then like Norris is the 2 seed against Ocon, the 15 on the other side of the bracket. And you can see all the matchups here on your screen, or you'll be able to see them when I post it on Instagram and this goes live. But essentially what you're going to do is you're going to choose who is going to win each matchup, and you're going to make your bracket all the way to completion. So if you think, in maybe the second round when Hamilton and Verstappen, are going against each other in Great Britain, maybe the Red Bull has an issue and Max has a DNF and Hamilton would win that round, and who knows who would go on to win the tournament. But basically it's just a head-to-head matchup between two drivers, and the way the winner is decided is who finishes ahead in the race. So if they both DNF, then it's who's classified higher, right? So it's going to be a really fun thing to do, just a little bit of engagement. And again, it leads us all the way up to summer break. So the first round is going to be this weekend in Austria, right, where we'll have the most matchups, and you get 1 point for each correct answer. And then in the second round in Great Britain, you'll have your other matchups. So we'll give you down to the Elite Eight, so to speak, and you get 2 points for that. And then the final four, you get 4 points for each correct answer. And then the last, we'll be down to the last two drivers in Belgium, which is cool because that's also the weekend of the National. And then you got to pick your winner. And we'll also have like a little tiebreaker. I think will be like how many seconds did they win by or something. So, but yeah, just a fun little kind of community thing. It's free to enter. And you can walk away. We're giving away $200 in break credit to the top three. So I think it'd be pretty cool. I love brackets, right? Obviously growing up in here in America, the NCAA tournament. I mean, I've filled out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those things. So I think it's cool to kind of bring that to F1. And what I think it really adds is, and if you could bring that up again super quick, is that like if you're watching the race, you're looking at, like, for instance, if you're watching the last race, it's like, oh, okay, last few laps, like everything settled down at the front, like, okay, not much is happening. But like, what if, the two drivers you're watching are in like a really close battle? What if like Hamilton and Alonso are in a close battle? It's like, oh my God, like, are they going to win? So it adds a little bit more. It's almost like fantasy football. There's more to watch than just, who wins the race, right? You've got all your individual matchups. So yeah, more details to come. It'll be posted all over on Instagram with how to enter and everything. And again, free to enter, and would love to have people join.
All right, cool. So stay tuned to Scott's Instagram at F1 Castle for more details on that. I certainly will be putting an entry in, and we'll probably bomb out in the first round.
You never know.
All right, so we're a little bit over, but that's fine. It's been a great conversation. A lot of good stuff happening in the community, a lot of good stuff happening in the castle. So again, thanks for all the likes and the comments and the subscribes. Scott and I greatly appreciate it for sure.
Absolutely. Really do.
All right, Scott, why don't you bring us home here?
All right, everybody. Well, as always, collect your cardboard and keep it carbon.